بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد لا تمدن يدك إلى الأخذ من الخلائق إلا أن ترى أن المعتي فيهم مولاك فإن كنت كذلك فخذ ما وافقك العلم. Do not stretch out your hands to take from creatures unless you see that the giver among them is your Lord. If such is your case, then take what knowledge says is suitable for you. Do not stretch out your hand to take from creatures unless you see that the giver among them is your Lord. If such is your case, then take what knowledge says is suitable for you. So this is again in the same kind of direction that we've been discussing, which is that a person constantly thinks of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be involved in everything that we do. It's that realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is behind everything that we do. One of the most prominent situations where this can be very difficult to deal with is the situation when you see something coming from someone else. Human beings are very in tune with their senses. This is what gives them assurance, generally speaking. Knowledge of something is not as powerful as seeing something. Seeing something increases and emphasizes the knowledge that you have about something. Thus you move from what they call ilmul yaqeen, the knowledge of some kind of certainty, to when you see it, it becomes aynul yaqeen. It becomes the eye of certainty, where you actually see it. Then if you experience something, then it becomes haqqul yaqeen. So generally speaking, a person can be very deluded in this kind of situation. Because when you're seeing something come from someone, and then for you to believe and know inside that it's actually coming from someone else, that requires a bit of training. It requires a bit of somersaulting in your mind, getting things right. Because humans, right from the beginning, where this is something that has to be learnt. That's why iman is acquired. There's a natural basis of faith which helps a person in that direction, makes it easy for him to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he's just such a reality. But at the end of the day, iman is something acquired. That's why yes, we're born in Muslim households. Muslims who are born in Muslim households, they're born in Muslim households. But when they do become of discerning age, and when they do become of a reflective stage, they do have to think of these things for themselves and personalize it to such a degree that most people's iman in that situation then becomes their own. Because the people they followed to become a Muslim, which is generally their parents, if for example their parents did leave the faith, they would still stay Muslim. Because now, although they took it through this blind following as such in the beginning, they then will personalize it and make it their own. That's how human beings are generally when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So generally, for example, somebody asked a question the other day that why would, when you can't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't see paradise and hell, the hereafter, such important beliefs and tenets of faith in our religion, you can't do without them. Our basis of faith depends on them. تؤمن باليوم الآخر, Jannat and Jahannam, paradise and hell being a reality. How can you be obliged to believe in them when you don't see them? And you're not going to see them until it's too late to believe. Well, the whole thing is that the reason is that the human beings generally, if you look at the overwhelming majority of human beings, in fact every human being, there are so many things that we believe purely based on information. There's so many things we believe in. The existence of cities that we haven't visited is a very simple example of that. But most of us, everyone, this is a human reality, it's a human function to believe in things that you don't see. Only then when you see some things and they reassure your belief. Then a question that arises is that if somebody has questions about faith, should they ask them or not? Right? Should they ask them or not? Well, there's two levels of this. One is that, I'm going in a bit of a different direction, but I think this is important to clarify. One is that if it's something that's bothering you, that's causing issues with your faith, it's actually bothering you, Allah prohibit. But if that is the case, then it's necessary to find out. That's why Imam Abu Hanifa says in his Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar that if you ever come across some kind of dubiety, some kind of dubiousness or doubt or wavering in terms of any issue of Islamic belief that is causing you some kind of friction in your mind, then it's necessary for you to ask somebody and get a response. If you can't find somebody quickly enough, then for the time being, until you can find somebody, the hukm and the command is that you entertain in your mind that I believe in this, whatever Allah would like me to believe. I believe in whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a reality in this case. So that's a kind of a vague, hold on kind of patchwork job we do in the beginning until we become move up. So that's what's important, right? If it's a question just that occurs in the mind, it doesn't cause you any wavering, but you'd just like to know. For example, why are women considered in the hadith to be naqisatul aql? Right? Why are they considered to be deficient in their intellect when we see that if you put men and women together generally nowadays, you see that women are excelling in terms of their hard work and their understanding, their mental acumen, it's all there. So what's going on? So that's you're not questioning the hadith, you just want to know its reason. So there's nothing wrong with those kind of questions as long as you don't become a high skeptic. There are some high skeptics. Skepticism is a disease where they don't believe in anything unless you provide absolute proof. And in many things there is no absolute proof. For example, they will even question their own ancestry. How do you prove that you came from your mother and father? Right? Okay, you got a birth certificate. Well, anybody could have made that up. A skeptic is the way anybody anybody could make things up. You know, the registrar might be your friend. He may have made you a certificate. Somebody may go beyond that and say, well, this is what I saw, but how do you know that you're still the same person? You weren't swapped. DNA is not 100%. So how do you reassure such a person? So a high skeptic can never be reassured. Then you've got the agnostics who believe in, I don't know yet. We need to still look. We need to still inquire. Inquiry is not ended yet. Well, there's been how many centuries since humanity has been looking for the ultimate reality? So any of those theories of the past, they're not good enough yet. If millions of years of inquiry has not produced anything, what do we expect in the next 1,000 years to produce? So agnostics just say we need to keep looking. They're different from atheists. Atheists are denial completely. Agnostics say we're not sure. La adriya, that's what they call them, la adriya. So that's, I mean, agnostics, okay, they've taken to be honest, I have more respect for an agnostic in just the technical sense of it, right? Because at least they've made a decision about something. These guys have not made a decision. And the fact is that if humanity had just been 100 years, then 100 years old, then that's understandable that we haven't really had enough time. But humanity is thousands of years old. And there's been many ideas. It's been chronicled and recorded and everything else of that nature. So then why doesn't a person take one of those ideas, right? Why take it as a professional kind of ideology that I'm not going to accept anything, I still have to find things? That's preventing you from taking something, even though one of those things may appeal to you. For example, one atheist came to us when we had an open day and he says that I really want to believe in God, but I just can't. The reason is that his intellectual framework is prohibiting him. He has when you grow up, you may have received some kind of atheistic intellectual framework that just causes you to deny because that's your intellectual framework. Anything we see outside, we process it according to our intellectual framework. That's why the natural faith is very important. It helps us to process things with the right filters. So this guy, his inside is wanting to believe Allah, but for some reason his intellectual framework is prohibiting him, it's limiting him. It can't get it because it keeps denying things according to his intellectual framework. We process everything according to the way we see things. Allahu Akbar. So if you have a question and you just want a clearer answer, and you have a source, and we should have clearer answers. And the proof of this is in Ibrahim alayhi salam's interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ibrahim alayhi salam says in the Quran, Arini kayfa tuhyi al-mawta. I want you to show me, Ya Allah, how you resurrect the dead, how you bring them back to life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks him, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? Don't you believe? قَالَ وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. It's only to satisfy my heart further, give it more contentment. So that kind of inquiry is allowed as long as it doesn't become your sole bread of your life. That's all you're doing. Because then eventually shaitan can use that. It's a bit precarious. Shaitan can use that to create. If you don't get the right answers, it could. But if your faith is firm and there are certain things that you want to know about, then that's completely fine. That gives you a better understanding of your faith. So it just depends on how you, and what I've noticed is that there are fitna for all of us in our different situations. Some people are more intellectual minded, so they have a lot more intellectual inquiry. They keep thinking about these things. Some people can't be bothered. That's the last thing on their mind. Their fitna is the dunya. You know, the intellectual minded ones, when sometimes they don't care about the dunya as much, they're just about learning things. That's their fitna sometimes. The shaitan will use it in different direction. Shaitan uses their aql, because the three faculties of the human being, aql, intellect, which generally associates with knowledge, right? Number two is anger, the faculty of anger, which anger not in the literal sense of getting angry and red in the face, but this ability within a person to stand up and do something, right? Which is manifested in anger in an extreme sense, but in a moderate sense it allows a person to just get up and do the right thing. Because if a person doesn't have it at all, or has very less of it, then it's going to lead to cowardice, where they're going to be so laid back they don't care about anything. That's a shortcoming in that regard. So that's the faculty of anger. Then you got the faculty of shahwa, of desire. Again, you need to have enough to be able to fulfill the rights of those who Allah has told us to fulfill, the rights of our stomach and the rights of husband and wife rights. If somebody doesn't have it and it's shortcoming in that regard, then again they're not going to be able to fulfill the rights of their spouse, for example. Take that to an extreme in any sense and you see all of these weird deviances that you get, sexual deviances. So everybody has a challenge with one or more of these. This is where our challenge generally comes. So generally our challenge is going to do with these three things. One or more of these things. Some people will just be purely an intellectual challenge. Again, asking too many questions. And sometimes that could take a person to wavering. The challenge of too much eating and just indulgence in stomach and shahawats, other types of fulfillments of that nature, temptations. So sometimes a person has it in all of them, you know. So these are our challenges basically that we have. The way of moderation of all of these things is to have some kind of resilience of the heart, because all of these things are to do with the faculties and not with the heart, but they impact on the heart. So if on the other hand we're not strengthening the heart against these, then it's a massive problem. There are many intellectual people that I have seen who, when they've not had a backing of spirituality, then they will lose out. Yet there are numerous other people, and Zarruq is one of them, Ibn Ajiba, many of our ulama. I mean, look at the mental acumen of People like Maulana Qasim Nanotwi and Ashraf Ali Thanwi, for example. Like Ajib, phenomenal human beings just from an intellectual perspective. Shah Waliullah. And these people could have been anywhere. They could have succeeded in anything that they did because but because of that heart with the dhikr of Allah and the spiritual mentoring, that is what's benefited them. Because that keeps you right. Because the heart is, all of these external things will attack the heart. All of these external things will impact the heart, and eventually the heart will just become too weak and it will just follow along in that. But if the heart is strong, and even though you're getting some harm, and we need the heart to be strong these days, because we are in this day and age being constantly attacked by various different ideologies in all forms. There's no way we can avoid it because we live in the midst of it. Every newspaper article, every media story that you see is going to be based on that. You know, with the sexual deviances that are out there, and everything else that's out there, it just constantly challenges you. It constantly challenges you, and many people are losing themselves in this regard because their iman is not strong enough. And iman is strengthened by the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and more learning by knowledge. And people are devoid because our occupation is the dunya. People are going to work this many hours a day, then they're coming and watching news that's impacting their iman. They're just about praying if they're lucky. Many Muslims don't pray, so they're not even praying. Some do pray. They're the really lucky ones. The people who get to pray 5 times a day, whether qada or ada or whatever it is, they're the lucky ones. How many Muslims pray today? I mean, I don't want to sound very pessimistic, but think about it. So if somebody who's not praying, or just about praying, or just praying Friday prayers or whatever it is, has no form of Islamic input, Islamic durus or anything of that nature, where are they getting enough to be able to sustain themselves in this world? The only thing they're getting, they're working, so their love of money is increasing. They're just in this toil of life, and on top of that, their knowledge system is all coming from the media, because they're just watching news and movies and things of that nature. That's their pastime. So how do you expect that person to be? It's very bleak. If we're not in that kind of system, we should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like if we have some concern, just concern itself is a massive ni'mah of Allah. People don't have any concern. They're happy with this life. They just want more and more of this life. Tell me how many people you know who do not listen to an Islamic lecture for the whole year. They might just get one on Eid if they're lucky, if they don't just aim to get there right for the salat time. How many people are like that? How many people do you know that work with you never get an Islamic lecture? And if they do get to Jumu'ah, I mean, not every Jumu'ah lecture unfortunately is very inspiring. Right? That's another thing. So can you see the problem which is on our hands? And then you wonder why our du'as aren't accepted, or the ummah doesn't get much and we're suffering. Because this is what globalization has done. This is what globalization has done. Then after that, we were in Hajj, so you know we're in the European camps. Now every camp is different in Hajj. You get what you pay for, meaning you get what your group pays for. You know, groups, they say you're going to get this and you're going to get that. This is their selling point. You've got camps in Mina, close to shaitan to further away from shaitan, right? Being close to shaitan means it's a less of a walk, right? And you're further. Generally the European camps are about 50 minutes away as a walk, right? They're a good few miles away. Then in those camps as well, you've got those that give you mattresses and sheets and pillows, an air cooling system, food. Some of them have buffet food, more exquisite food. Some have basic handout food in just trays or whatever, plates or whatever. Some don't have anything. You take your own. They might just provide a carpet. You have to then put your sleeping bag, bring your own stuff. There's no mattress or whatever. Food you have to buy outside, and so on and so on. So there's all of this stuff. Now the one we had, it provides you a nice, really thick mattress that turns into a seat. It gives you a pillow and a sheet and decent food. It's okay, right? Decent food. And space you get is just the space of one mattress. That's all you get. You get nothing beyond that. There's no, you have to put everything up to pray salat. That's how it is. So some of these brothers, remember, a lot of the people I'm going with, is their hajj for the first time and maybe the only time, right? Some of them come from this category of people that I'm speaking about, right? Mashallah, they've had the tawfiq and they've just come for hajj. Some of them, they'll come back to Heathrow Airport and their hijabs go off. There's always going to be one of them every year that I see. The hijabs go off as soon as you get to London Airport, because the fitna takes you again. And I told them this. I said, right now we've been with Muslims, right? And it's been such a wonderful atmosphere. As soon as you land, in fact, from the airline, from the airplane, but as soon as you land, you'll just suddenly start feeling this freedom, and shaitan will. And it was exactly that. Most people, alhamdulillah, but it happens. Anyway, some of these brothers, they went out on the street in Mina after the first day we got there, and they saw all of these people in the sun, and it was very hot this year, 42 degrees we're talking about. Meaning it was so hot this year that in Muzdalifah, at night time when you can generally sleep, every year I've slept that I've been, this year I couldn't. It was like a sauna. You were just sweating like crazy. You just about fell asleep and you woke up with sweat. It was just very difficult to sleep. That's how hot it was this year. So they saw all of these people, lots of people on the street, no food access. And they're literally on the street, on cardboards or whatever. Sometimes they've got maybe a makeshift shade pulled over them or whatever the case is. And they started feeling very guilty in our tent. So I heard this from more than one of them. Now it spurred them to do a few good things. Number one, we generally waste a lot of food in these places. A lot of food is wasted. So alhamdulillah, what they started doing, we made an announcement that any extra food put in that area, so that if if anybody wants to take more food, you can take. You get all these breakfast items and people just have them lying all over the place. Alhamdulillah, all of that. So then they used to collect all the foods after lunch or whatever and go and give it to these people. But they were feeling guilty of being here, of being in the tent. Look at them, look where we are. Now this wasn't the best of what you had down there. A friend of mine who works with another group from America that cost $20,000 a package, $20,000 to $24,000 a package, which we're talking about 13 to 15,000 pounds a package, right? There in Mina you get 2 to 3 person a cabin, so it's not a tent, it's like a proper closed buffet meals, Wi-Fi. Okay, I understand Wi-Fi. Understand Wi-Fi, right? There were other groups that had Wi-Fi as well, and you can have it on your phone anyway. Satellite TV in Mina. Like, you can't stay away for just that. I can understand it's bad enough having it in the hotels in Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara, but then although to be honest, most people, they just keep the haram on. The haram, that's what I've seen. So at least they know how many people in the haram, understandable. But to have it in Mina as well, and that's going really crazy. I can understand having something to make, this is where I was coming to. So these people started feeling guilty. Now I didn't want that to spoil their hajj, because shaitan in hajj time comes in various different ways. Number one, he doesn't let you go. If you do manage to overcome that, there's so many people who've delayed for years and years and years and years, and then they go when they're old and they suffer. They should go when they're young. So they've gone finally. Now shaitan comes in all forms. One of the biggest ways comes, if you've gone with your spouse, you're generally going to have an argument about something. He just causes some kind of issues and it spoils your hajj. It's really bad because of the cases that came to me about this, right? To such a degree, one woman took me to the side at Heathrow Airport when we were getting our bags, and she'd asked me a few questions during the hajj as well, and she goes, my husband, this is what he did, this, that and the other, and I'm thinking we should just separate and all that. And I'm like, this is not the time to discuss this, right? You've just come back from hajj. I was thinking you just come, but I said this is not, because you can get drawn into it. I said, look, this is not the time to discuss this, right? So shaitan causes a lot of these frictions. So now this is another idea. In fact, another thing shaitan causes, A few days before Hajj, he'll make you think you have to do lots of worship, get the most out of Haram, so go and do 10 tawafs and things like that, and then you are knocked out by Hajj time. So on Arafah, you can't stand, you become bimar, you're sleeping. And to be honest, I used to feel like that. Because we have Medina Munawwara, I stayed there, we generally stay there 4 days or 8 days. So I stayed there, alhamdulillah, 8 days because I had to deal with 2 different groups. Then when we get to Makkah, we have 2 days before Hajj. And then I have 1 day after Hajj. And I'm thinking, I need to maximize this time. And for us to get from Aziziyah to the Haram, and Haram is really difficult these days because of the work that's going on. You don't even know where to go, what not to do, and the crowds, and it takes a lot out of you. So I used to feel really guilty that I can't go and do 10 tawafs a day or whatever. But then he said, relax before Hajj. Go and do something, but relax. Don't overdo it, because your main maqsad of your journey is Hajj, your Arafah, your Muzdalifah, your Nahar, your all of these things, to really get the most out of those special promotions that are taking place on that day. So I'm just trying to tell you how shaitan comes to the Haji in these different ways. And the third way is this: people are acting all guilty about this, that we're enjoying ourselves, and whereas we're not really. When they first came into there, they when you first come into your tent for the first time, you feel really like a fish out of water. You feel homesick, right? Because in Makkah Mukarramah, you got nice hotels and whatever. Now you come to a space of like a grave, literally, and you've got ihram on, so you can't even have your normal accessories and things of that nature. So you feel really out of place, and that really is a struggle in the beginning, right? And then suddenly you start seeing this as a luxury, and you're guilty about this luxury. So then I had to explain, I really thought about it. And you had to explain that, look, if you swapped your place with those people, what would happen? They would most likely, because they haven't dealt with this kind of luxury, right? If they're willing to go and spend their day outside, no shade, they're probably used to that. I'm not saying in a derogatory sense, they're probably used to that. Otherwise, why would somebody go and do that? Yes, there's a few of them will be so desperate for a Hajj. And most of these people will probably be illegal anyway down there, right? They shouldn't be there, because they're supposed to have camps for every place, and if you can pay for it. So either these guys are very poor, or they are illegal and they've just slipped in. Their workers from Saudi Arabia, the older workers that they've got from around, they're not allowed to come except every 5 years. They smuggle themselves in, and they've just found a place. Nobody's going to ask them there, right? They keep moving them out, they just go to another place. If they were in here, they'd probably suffer because of indulgence of the luxury that day. If we went out there, we would probably run away. Our Hajj would be messed up. We couldn't stand the heat. We've only got this place according to our status. This is what we're used to. If you put yourself down into Hajj is not supposed to be an extra mujahada. There's already enough effort in the rights that are legislated upon you. Don't make an extra mujahada and mess your Hajj up by going and sleeping on the street. If you're used to sleeping on the street, it's a whole different story for you. So Allah has given us according to our status, and there's no reason to feel guilty. You do shukr of what you have. When you look at them, you must do shukr of what you have. But you must also not start indulging in what you have. And it's not a place to indulge anyway. Yes, if you went beyond your means and you had, like these extra packages that gave you all of these extra things which were contrary to the Hajj, then that would be wrong. But otherwise, you only have what you have. And there was one of our recent scholars, Mufti Rashid Ludhianwi. These were the days when you didn't have too many luxury hotels around Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara. You had the small ones. There were a few, 1 or 2 Hiltons, one of these big hotels or whatever, very few. Now that is the norm around, but before that wasn't the case. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it used to be these small hotels. He used to insist on paying huge amounts of money to stay in one of those luxury 5-star hotels, and he's got it in his biography, it's there. The reason is, I then don't have to worry about anything. I can then go and spend my time in the Haram and come back and be, everything is the way I want it. So his reason for taking those was not for the luxury, but was for the convenience of because those were the closest hotels to the Haram in those days, right? They were the closest, and they had the less problem of people you had to get through, and it gave you access to these things, and it just gave you ease and comfort. So if you're doing it for that reason, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and you've got the ability to do it, then there's nothing wrong with it, and you mustn't feel guilty about it. We're just not used to it. We're just not used to being in the sun and doing that worship. Why add that extra layer? So I said, thank Allah for what you have and don't feel guilty. Then I explained some situations to them that everybody has a different situation. I may have given you this example before. When I was studying in India, I was there with my wife and Hudhaifa, and he was only less than a year old then, right? So, or just about a year old or something. How old are you? Okay. Anyway, so I went to do a bit of shopping. Now, I was a student supporting myself, so I had only a bit of money anyway, and most of my money I would like to spend on books. So I went out once to buy a bit of shopping for the home, because we had rented a home there. I spent 200 rupees in about 10 minutes, 2 shops I think. I took this Indian student along with me, not a UP student, but a student from Gujarat. Gujarati students are supposed to be a bit more well off than the UP ones, right? Gujarat is a more prosperous state than UP, right, in general. So I took him along. I went and bought a few things. 200 rupees is about 2 to 3 pounds. Maybe that time it was about 3 pounds. Now it's 2 pounds worth. About £3 of shopping I did. Here you go to a normal shop, you can't buy anything for £3. Your normal shop is going to be between £40 and £100. Go to Costco, you don't come back with less than £100 of shopping, right? That's the norm these days, right? But now it's £3 I spent. The next day or the day after, he was an honest student. He came up to me, he says, "Aapne bahut fuzul kharchi ki. You wasted so much money." I was just thinking, subhanallah, how is that possible? I was thinking, when did I do that? Because I was not an extravagant spender, especially when those days in India I would take the bus. I had a bike, right? Because I had a certain amount of money that had to last a whole year, right, with the family, and much of my money would be spent in going to visit ulama or buying books or something like that. So I wasn't going on eating in fancy places and all that, none of that. I wasn't like that. There are some students who do that from the UK, right? I wasn't doing that. So when he said that, I just couldn't understand why. Then I realized, he goes, "Aapne 200 rupiye kharch kar dale 10 minute ke andar." Right? I was, wow. I said, then I realized afterwards that their stipend for the month was 40 rupees. For 1 month was 40 rupees. There were people among them who I found out, they've never eaten chicken for years. They come from Bihar and other places. They don't see chicken. What they cook for them there is, your dals and things like that, and the only meat they get is buffalo meat. These old buffaloes they cut for them. They don't get chicken. One of them only got to taste milk because he was bimar, he was sick, and that's why he had to buy some milk. So you got students like that who are studying, and I just suddenly spent 5 months of his salary, his stipend, in 10 minutes. It's like, for example, you make £2,000 a month, for example, and you see some guy coming from Qatar or Oman or Emirates or whatever and blowing £100,000 in one night in a hotel or in a casino, and you think, no, that's definitely, do you understand? Is that kind of a comparison? So was I doing fuzul kharshi? Was I wasting my money? Was I being extravagant? Can I live like them? I can't. If I tried to live like them, that would add an additional layer. I wasn't there to do zuhud. I was there to study. If I tried to also do that and live on the basic dal and whatever, which I can probably do now, but it's impossible. Do you understand? It's just no way you can do that. So be thankful for what you have. Just don't indulge in it, and don't be extravagant in it, and don't use it in the haram. Don't allow the masti of the paisa to, don't allow the mischief of the money that you have to overtake you. That's essentially the thing. So what is the conclusion of all of this? If you're getting what's according to your level, then do shukr for what you have when you see the lower. Don't feel guilty. In the grand scheme of things though, what is the preferred route? What is the sunnah of Rasulullah? Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to make do with little. Allahumma hshurna fi zumratil masakin. This was his dua. Allahumma ja'al Allahumma ja'al rizqa ali Muhammadin quta. Oh Allah, make the sustenance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just enough to strengthen your back, to keep you straight. That's what his dua was for himself and his family. That was his dua. He had expensive things which he gave away. Because one thing is for sure. One thing is for sure. Use as much as you like, get the best things as much as you like, have lots of money as you like, but you will be questioned more. As you have in this world, the more you have, the more boxes you have to fill on your tax form. Likewise in the hereafter there's going to be more questioning, and there's no doubt about that. Unless you've got some really good acts that give you a special VIP ticket without questioning into Jannah. Otherwise, if you've got a lot, then try to get a VIP ticket as well. Otherwise, if you've just got a lot and that's all you're doing, then there's going to be more questioning. The person who's poor, who doesn't have much, he's going to have less questioning. Right? He's going to have less questioning. So yes, questioning is going to come. So if you do have, then do something to get a special ticket to Jannah, special favor with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, special bonus, and keep the heart strong so that all of this extra does not overcome us. This is the whole point of the dhikr of Allah and having a background. If you look around you, there are many intellectual individuals out there in the Muslim community. They've gone astray. Even if they are ulama sometimes, or scholars, or studied, they sometimes go too much into liberalism because they don't have a backing of a source that helps them and support them. They don't have a backing of dhikr and remembrance. Dhikr and remembrance is so important because it makes you conscious. It makes you conscious of, I've got to stand in front of Allah. I have to be careful. I have to be careful with what I do. So thank Allah for what you have, and try to garner as much favors with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as possible. I don't even know how possible that is, because the problem with having too much substance is that it has this propensity to take us away. So it's like we're really struggling with that. But there have been success in the past with great ulama who had a lot and still survived, right? And this is through sadaqat and through assistance of others and through dhikr of Allah and remembrance and things of that nature. See, it's ajib how shaitan comes and attacks us in different ways, in different forms, just to then spoil a major worship. Because Hajj is probably the most effective fast worship you can have in the world. To get you closer to Allah, it's probably the fastest and most effective route that hardly fails. It fails with a few people because they just not into it. They'll go there and start complaining about everything, and that just messes everything up. There are things to complain about. There's no doubt there are things to complain about. I'm glad the thing which cheesed me off was right at the end. Because you're on the Hajj terminal and they've got gates. Each gate has 3 flights associated to it, and you have to get there 6 to 8 hours before. To get into that gate, after you do the initial get into the after they let you check in, first they make you sit in this really hot place where there's no AC or anything. Okay, understandable. Then they let you check in. Then you go into the hall, and then you get into your gate area. To get into that gate area, there's 1,000 people waiting to get in, because you got 3 flights. People of 3 flights trying to get in, and they've only got one security, one X-ray, and one belt, and everybody has to be checked for whatever reason, right? So it takes one by one, 1,000 people. How many hours is that going to take? So you're just literally just standing there. You can't even sit, because you move along every few seconds, every few minutes. So it's just, there are some crazy things down there. But the way we started discussing, and I told the brothers, I said, enough of our sins haven't been purified yet. So this is the last part of it. Because it makes you do sabr. Otherwise you get angry. So it's all about that sabr. Just take it as a way to purify your sins. But Hajj is the most effective way that I've seen for a 5-day quick fit. You know, there's the 10 days i'tikaf, which is very beneficial. Sitting in a masjid for 10 days with a shaykh, that's very beneficial. But this one is even more, because you're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most holy of holy places. It's just amazing. It makes you change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث سبحان الله العلي الأعلى الوهاب اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Oh Allah, we are your servants. Oh Allah, we are your sinful servants. Oh Allah, we have committed many excesses. Oh Allah, but at the end of the day we are your servants and nobody else's servants. Oh Allah, when we pray to you, we bow down in front of you, we say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, we glorify you as our Lord. Oh Allah, we ask that you assist us and help us. You forgive us. Oh Allah, grant us forgiveness. 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 Oh Allah, grant us pardon. Oh Allah, overlook our sins and have your mercy upon us. Oh Allah, have your mercy upon us. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, treat us with your mercy. Oh Allah, your mercy, rivers of your mercy are constantly flowing. Oh Allah, we ask for even a simple drop of that mercy. Oh Allah, it's enough to suffice us. Oh Allah, keep our hearts attached to you. Oh Allah, keep our consciousness upon you. Oh Allah, keep our consciousness with you. Oh Allah, this world is very attractive, it's very distracting. Oh Allah, we are indulgent in it. Oh Allah, we think about the dunya 24 hours. Oh Allah, we're constantly behind the dunya. Oh Allah, allow our hearts to stay firm on your deen. Oh Allah, allow our hearts to stay firm on your deen, to stay firm on your deen. Oh Allah, we ask you for tawfiq to do many good deeds. Oh Allah, to not be embroiled in the world in such a way that we have no time for anything else. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq to make our salats on time. Oh Allah, to really establish our prayer the way you want them to be. Oh Allah, do not make them just a form, but grant them a spirit and a ruh. Oh Allah, grant our prayers life. Oh Allah, grant our hearts life. Oh Allah, grant our hearts life and a soul. Oh Allah, we beseech you. Oh Allah, we are tired of fighting against the shaitan. We make tawbah in the night and we break it in the morning. Oh Allah, we make tawbah in the morning and we break it by night. Oh Allah, even when a child is tired of walking, he asks his parents to pick him up, and the child is picked up by his parents. Oh Allah, we ask you to take us in your refuge now. Oh Allah, we ask to take you in our refuge. Oh Allah, we ask you to take you in your refuge. Oh Allah, and to grant us protection from the shaitan. Oh Allah, there are many evils out there. We're bombarded by them day in and day out. There are many distractions for us. There are many temptations for us. Oh Allah, we ask that you grant us the understanding, the true understanding of things. You show us the truth as the truth and allow us to follow it, and show us the wrong as the wrong and allow us to abstain from it. Oh Allah, bless us with beneficial knowledge. Oh Allah, bless us with beneficial knowledge. Oh Allah, fulfill our permissible needs. Oh Allah, fulfill our permissible needs. Oh Allah, protect us from all forms of distraction and the mischief of the money that you have given us. Oh Allah, we seek protection, we seek forgiveness. We seek forgiveness from all of those sins we've committed using the very money that you bestowed upon us, the very health that you gave us. Oh Allah, we ask you forgiveness from this. Oh Allah, you gave it to us and we use it to aggress against you. Oh Allah, forgive us for this blasphemy. Forgive us for this tyranny. Oh Allah, forgive us for this sin. Forgive us for this excess. Oh Allah, our life is full of excesses. Oh Allah, our life is full of excesses. Oh Allah, protect us and help us. Have compassion upon us. Have mercy upon us. Oh Allah, make this a blessed gathering. Oh Allah, do not let any of us return except forgiven, except inspired, except with your mercy. Oh Allah, grant us all your mercy. Oh Allah, grant us all your mercy. Grant us all your mercy. And all of those who have died in these calamities we've had, oh Allah, grant them blessing. Oh Allah, grant them blessing, grant them closeness to you, grant them shahada. Oh Allah, grant them shahada. Oh Allah, grant them shahada. Oh Allah, allow us to perform your pilgrimage, oh Allah, in a pristine state. And oh Allah, allow us to go back over and over again to your blessed house. now in the precincts of your Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and to take from the bounties that are available there, from the rahmat that descend upon these places. O Allah, do not deprive us of these mercies. O Allah, do not deprive us of these mercies. O Allah, accept whatever du'as have been made in Arafat this year for all of us. O Allah, accept all of the beneficial du'as that would be beneficial for us, accepted for us, despite the fact that we were not there with our physical bodies. Maybe we may have been there with our hearts. O Allah, we ask you protection from all of the things that have been sought protection and refuge from. O Allah, bless us. O Allah, grant us tawfiq, allow us to see the right as the right and to follow it. O Allah, bless us in our lives, bless us in our businesses, bless us in our homes. O Allah, protect us from all of the fitnas out there, protect our children from all of the fitnas out there. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun al mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.